What's up, my fans? This is Dan Series, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Thor Love and Thunder. So, yes, I went to see it today, and wow, just a big wow from the film. I enjoyed it. It was amazing. To me, I think this one has to be the best Thor film so far from Thor. What goes on in the film, damn, it's just, like the title says, there is love, there is thunder, but to come with it, there is sadness, emotion, all that comes with it as well. But God, the film is amazing. I'm gonna get through like everything we had to speak about today. The characters, obviously Gorr, which I will get into about, and then obviously the others, and then the story really. So I've got all my notes and all to say, for the obviously what happened in the film. So obviously as normal, I might miss some bits out, but you could count it as, or even if Dan didn't mention it, this is a big surprise for me, so there's be that. But before I will get into that, this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the film yet, obviously get off this video now, and then go and see the film, and then once you've seen it, come back here and obviously, you can obviously hear my thoughts and everything from the film. But if you're ones who ain't that bothered, well, you're going to enjoy the ride. So, how can we start with the story then, before we get into what could be coming up and everything? I get to that kind of part. So, we start off, obviously, before the Marvel Studio logo comes up, we start with actually seeing Gorr and on his planet with his dying daughter. So, in this one, I noticed there's a change of one. So it looks like he ain't got his wife with him. So I would say his wife died at that point. But he's got a child with him. Now, I know in the comics that at the point, he had no child, born yet. It was like, it was born obviously in his wife's bed. Obviously in the wife's belly, but obviously that's in the comics. But it looks like they changed it for the film to have it that, he's actually got a daughter in his arms. But sadly, she dies because obviously they are starving. There's no food, no water, because obviously the planet is a desert. Well, like a rocky kind of desert planet. So they sort of kept that from the comics. I did notice well, Gorr does have like human skin and like his child, so that was a bit different. But what happens for him to gain obviously the color we know him to have in the comics is he starts hearing a voice calling to him, and he finds this, which I thought it was a weird first, like this forest kind of area, and once he's there, there's some water, and then there's food, and then he bumps into this one god who they pray. Now, on top of my head, I can't recall who the god's name is. I think it was Bast, it's a god I've never heard of before. But when Gorr obviously saws him, he goes like, "We've been praying for you," and all this, and then obviously that's when that god reveals to him saying, "Huh." It's like, don't save people. No, the whole purpose of you is just have to die, and that's it. And Gorr obviously angered from this, but by him, we have this weird creature, which I have to say it's known, which I will get to later in the video, because the Necro sword is by him. And yes, it is the Necro sword. The god actually names the sword, so I'm like, it has to be it's the Necro sword. So, with Gorr, before he gets killed by the god, because the god gets up because what Gorr said to him, he kind of peed him off and then tries to strangle him, but then the sword comes to Gorr and then kills the god. And that's the point when he vows to kill gods, and then the weapon kind of like turned his skin into obviously the colour he has in the film. But the god also mentions about it's a curse, so it's like there's something to the weapon. But after that, we start jumping to Korg, obviously talking about Thor, obviously mentioning about what he's been doing since, well, obviously in Endgame, saying about a team with the Guardians, and then obviously getting into shape. And then obviously we jumped into Thor, obviously on top of the mountain, like resting, obviously, because in the point of the film, he's supposed to try and find out what he obviously tried to know his purpose now, obviously. He's trying to find out what he's meant to do in life now, obviously, because if you've seen the trailers and how he brings it up. But obviously the Guardians call him for help, and then he tries to help these people because they lost a god lady, which obviously to Gorr. Thor fights these, they look like weird birdie creatures, but he takes care of them. But obviously in the process, the temple where these people obviously they serve their gods, kind of gets destroyed. But then obviously after that we jumped to Jane Foster, and yes, they kept it from the storyline that Jane now is suffering with cancer, and it's very like sad, really, because when I saw that, I was like, because she was in one of those scanning tubes. I was like, oh yeah, they are keeping the storyline. But as a surprise, we get a nice visit from Darcy. So yeah, she makes a surprise appearance, which I had a funny feeling that she would. But I'm glad it was only like a cameo, but I'm glad she was in it, because obviously last we saw her was WandaVision. Now we see her again in this. Obviously gone to see Jane just to cheer her up, but obviously nah. It's not really working, and Jane is like, she's like, obviously wants to get back to her work, so she really is like, well, at one point she was messing with the bag, going like, is this thing not going to go down? But obviously back in her lab, obviously she must be trying to look into cancer, and we get like Elbit Sober, I'm sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, obviously the guy from from the 4 films and even Endgame, whose name was mentioned in Miss Marvel as well lately. We see it's just a Vero voice message, a Vero kind of call, but obviously not live kind of call. It was more like a message kind of thing. It's just saying about, look, if you hear anything, just let me know. But then somehow these Asgardian books came to her. Well, I said to myself, wait, did these books come out of nowhere, or were they just there? But someone was calling her, which I'll get to. But then when she looks at it, she says about, the hammer could restore her, like give her health. And she makes her way to New Asgard, which looks very, obviously from the trailers you can see it's very changed since what we saw in Endgame. Obviously we see Valkyrie in one of her meetings. We see the opening of this ice cream, I think it was like an ice cream store with the Infinity Gauntlet was as a logo sign. And Once a Boy's character also had an appearance, was Darryl, I think I'm saying his name wrong. It was from those shorts that they did for the Thor Ragnarok film, and he was in the film, so I'm like, oh. So I was like, so I said to myself, now I don't know if like those shorts were actually canon then, which, well, I wouldn't have thought they'd be canon, because obviously with the banner was there, so I'm like, well, it couldn't be canon because the banner was off Earth after Age of Ultron, so I don't know. But obviously Jane gone there, and then we see the hammer, obviously, kind of start. You can see that he was moving, so obviously he was like, oh, Jane's about to hold it. One bit I just remember before that bit happened, we get to see the play, obviously, like we saw in Ragnarok when they played the Thor Dark World one, but they played the Thor Ragnarok one. When we get to see, obviously, the actors, obviously who played who in the last film. Obviously, we get the introduction of the woman. Obviously, I'm trying to remember her name, but she was the one who plays in this. She plays Hela. It's the I'm trying to remember her name now. Oh, for God's sake, I'm trying to get her name here. Blah 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 blah. Oh, that is it. Oh, I got minute. Oh yes, Mirror and McCarthy. Well, her name will be down in the description. But it's the if you ever seen like that Muppets kind of film, the one with the puppets, obviously with the murder thing, and she's like a cop. Yeah, she's in that, and she's also in Bridesmaids. If you know who I'm on about, then you're like, oh, her, yeah. So obviously, what should I say? Like after the Jane bit, obviously we jump back to Thor, and before they leave, obviously with the Guardians, the people on the planet, like the leader looked like he was peed off, but he doesn't really show his anger, but you can tell he is. Gives the goats to Thor, and then before obviously they left the planet with the gods, and it looked like the moment they could have destroyed the ship. He gets it. There's it. Well, Star-Lord has a look on the distress cores, and they got like a lot of them, and they all relate to the gods being dead. So it's like, oh, yeah, God Bush is on he's doing his mission. And then we get a call from Lady Sif, which, yes, she's back in the film. Her saying about, well, she was going like calling for help for Thor, all that. Then Thor goes like, well, I need to go and help her. And then Guardians using, I think, the good excuse to go like, what about we split up? You go and find your friend, we're going to deal with the other people. But I think that was more of a way him saying, all right, best way we get rid of Thor, we say he goes with his mate and we get the hell out of here. Which I think that worked. Then obviously after the Guardians and Thor depart their ways, even though I noticed that Korg was with him in that part of the bed with the Guardians, so That was cool. It looks like, he was with the Guardians for a while then. But now, obviously, Thor and Quo and the goats on their way to find Lady Sif. They find her, and she does don the comic book accurate costume she has. So I was like, oh, very interesting. But now she's suffered with an arm missing, so it's like, oh. And then she was like, she thought she was dying before the girl's like, oh, no, you're not. And she was like, shit. I'm like, what, you wanted to die? I'm like, what? But Thor did make a nice joke, funny joke saying, well, your arm might be in Van Hela. I'm like, I don't think the arm's going to be there. But obviously after that, we get Gorr, obviously, to New Asgard. So obviously he must have found out, well, obviously gone there to try and track Thor there. Sends his Berserker army onto the town, which they start to attack. And the Berserker creatures, well, I would say, if you're asking, well, do they keep the symbiote apart to them? Like the symbiotes, like, Venom and all that. Well, I don't know. I mean, what I'm going to say in the video, it looks like they're making it like they're not symbiotes now, or, but I don't know. I mean, they don't really get into, like, what they're made of, really. But, well, you could say they do, but I'm like, oh, is that what they're made of? But obviously, we get all that happening. Then Thor, obviously, getting back to New Asgard with the help of Valkyrie as well. Obviously, Valkyrie's there just helping the town. Then, obviously, we see Normir, obviously killing some of the Berserkers. And then Thor about to grab it, but obviously goes back to Jane, who's now become Mighty Thor. Her attacks on the Berserkers are amazing. And then Thor going like, wait, who are you? And what's with the my look armor thing on? Yeah. And then he transforms into that newest armor he's got, obviously with the helmet, which I know people said they didn't like in the last trailer, but, well, it does look like it's still a bit weird in the, obviously when they get to that shot of what we saw in the trailer, but I thought he doesn't have it on for long. But then once Jane takes the mask off and we find out, well, then he finds out, I was like, Jane? And then we get another montage with Korg mentioning about what happened with Jane and Thor. And what we learn is after Dark World, they got a house together. They've been living a lovely life, watching films, going to parties, and then obviously dates as well. But looks like later on in today's relationship, looks like the both of them got more busy, like obviously before being on Earth, so he got to do his Avenger stuff. Nick Fury even called him on the one point of the date. Jane getting busy with her work, her work, obviously she must have got more bigger with her work, so she got busy with that. Before Jane, both felt like they don't really want to ruin what they got, but later on you can see them arguing, and then we find out that Jane is the one who broke up with Thor. And how she does it is, she writes down a note and then she leaves. So it's like, oh, so she broke up with him, but she left him a note by doing that. So I'm like, oh, damn. So, yeah, so Thor's not telling the truth when he said in Ragnarok saying, oh, no, I broke up with her. No, Thor, Jane broke up with you. So after the end of montage, we jump back to the battle. We see him fighting. Gorr joins in the fight, trying to take on them. But then, obviously, he makes his retreat because he lost that. Well, he wasn't really getting nowhere with it. But then, it looks like his major plan was to steal these children. Which I was like, in this point, I was like, oh, what does he need the children for? Which you learn that the children are Asgardians, obviously, and different species, which I could one said who it was, but I was like, I've never heard of that species. But one of them he captured was actually, which is a surprise to me, that this young lad who is the son of Heimdall. Which I was like, wait, Heimdall had a kid? Which, brought a shock to me. I mean, I'm like, I was like, oh, I didn't know he had a missus and obviously got a kid with her. I was like, when did this happen? And I thought it's weird as well, because I was trying to think of the timeline kind of thing. I'm like, well, he died in obviously 18 when the Fury one was happened. Then obviously and then I was like, well, there's no, and I thought, when I looked at the kid, I was keep thinking what age it is, but he looks like in the age like 12 or 14, like in that, so yeah, maybe he must have had a kid with that, obviously with his girlfriend or wife, obviously before the events of Ragnarok, I would have to guess. Or I would say maybe that's when he must have had his kid. But anyway, obviously after the kidnapping, obviously they all call the people at the fun bit, obviously in the, you could call this one building bit. I was just saying, and Thor obviously tried to calm everyone down, giving him a speech like, we're going to rescue the kids and all that. And then obviously when he was trying to go there, someone was a Stormbreaker starts to be playing over a bit, because I think that the Stormbreaker's getting jealous of Normia being back. But then obviously Thor goes like, wait, Heimdall's kid, I could see if we could try and communicate. You know, it's like, oh no. What I meant to say was Heimdall's kid got in touch with Thor, and he goes like, oh wait, yes, Heimdall's kid. So he goes like, so he does like the thing like what happened in the last Thor film when he closed his eyes and then he's not like there, but it's more like he's there with the kids, but he's not actually there. He's kind of like a hologram version like of him is there. But then obviously he says to the kids, don't worry, we're going to rescue and all that. But then when he sees where they're going, and then he tells them that, they're going to the Shadow Realm. And they're going to the Shadow Realm, and that's where he's going to be. So then, obviously, Thor and Valkyrie go like, well, we don't really want to go charging in there, because that's when he's going to be powerful. And then the both go like, oh, we know one place where we can go. And it's the place called the, I got the name on here, Olympias City. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong, but it's the place where all the gods go. It's like what this place is. So I'm like, all right, let's go there. But then Jane goes like, well, if your hammer's playing, obviously they bring up about that Thor's hammer playing up now, and he goes like, well, why not? We got like a ship, and we used the hammer because obviously the axe, because we know that the axe is like a Bifrost thing. So they go like, if we can attach that to a ship, that will work. And they're like, oh wait, Valkyrie's like, wait, I've got a boat. So that's where the boat idea came from her. So obviously they set off to the city which they get there. And then obviously being there, Jane's having a nice conversation before going like, well, trying to come up with cash faces and all that. I'm like, oh, she's really getting into a superhero bit. Which obviously Valkyrie noticing about her Thor going like, ooh, are you trying to sense infinity with her again? All that. Then they get to the center where all the gods are there. Now, I can't really name all the gods that was there, but we know that Bast was there, if I'm saying the name right. It's possibly the Black Panther god. We knew that. Obviously, Zeus, we already knew that Zeus was there. But then obviously, the plan from Thor was like, oh wait, if we can get Zeus and we can get all these other gods to help us, that'd be grand. But obviously, Thor tells Zeus about what's been going on, and Zeus was like, it's only just the gods who ain't that much famous who's getting killed. We ain't that bothered. You know, and all that. It's like, we're safe here. But then at one point because obviously Thor mentioned about, Zeus was his hero, but then obviously seeing how Zeus is acting, he's like, going like, that kind of moment you're like, like, you should never meet your heroes. That's what he's starting to feel like. And he says to him, like, you're a coward. But when they say Zeus wasn't pleased, and he goes like, look, the only reason we ain't going to deal with this is because we know he's got the Necro sword, and we know that we're going to get killed if he finds us. And then, he says to Thor that you and your friends cannot leave, because if Gorr gets you and finds out where we are, we're all done for. But obviously the gang have a fight. Korg gets destroyed, which you think he's dead, which I was shocked I thought he was dead, but it turns out he survived. He managed to call the ghosts, because he was saying earlier about a special kind of whistle to call the goats. He calls the goats and they all get out of there, which we see the two Celestials in comic book accurate form on their way out, which I'm like, I'm going to bring more about that one in a bit. Then obviously we jump back to the kids, obviously talking before, saying about, look, we're on our way now, we found our way, obviously we got this lightning bolt from Zeus, because Thor did say, if we can use Zeus's lightning bolt, that'd be easy, which they do gain anyway. And obviously, before leaving, Thor folds at Zeus's chest, which was like, he's dead, but we'll get back to that later on with his Zeus. But obviously, after Thor's told the kids and all that of what's happening so far, after Thor's gone, Gorr comes by the kids, and how he acts is very different to the comic book one, because when I've heard about the comic book one, he was like, he ain't like the funny, like trying to be a cheerful guy kind of funny one. I thought he was like a more like grump, I don't know how to say grumpy, but like menacing, like he ain't happy, like he ain't smiling kind of happy kind of thing. But in this, he's kind of like he grabs one of his creatures and goes like, about pulling his head, and he pulls the creature's head, and the kids all start screaming. He goes like, whoa, what's the matter? You all wasn't scared a minute ago. And then he chucks it at the kids, and I'm like, you monster! And then I'll see Gorr goes like, I'm counting on Thor to come to me, and all that. And I was like, SA doing good. Now, also along the way, that was it. I think we find about on the way we get to learn as well from obviously. I think they find the information from. Oh no, it was they find it from Zeus that we find out that actually Gorr, his plan is to find eternity, which when Valkyrie goes like in the place, Valkyrie goes like, oh shit. And obviously, if you've never heard of eternity is one of is a god as well, like more powerful than the gods like Zeus and all that, Zeus and Odin like that. I mean, I've heard of the character's eternity and I've seen the look of it, but she's one of those big kind of ones. And well, I think it's a he or a she, but I'm not pretty sure what gender the person is. But I don't know if it's meant to be a he or she or it's both, but it's one of them. But I think they said it was a she, but I'm not pretty sure. But obviously it was like, oh wait a minute, maybe he's going to her to get to obviously to use her to find obviously to defeat all the gods, all that. Because at that point I thought, oh maybe he's gonna get her to make the god bomb for him, but we can get into that later on. Obviously when they get on their way to Gorr's location, obviously Jane then tells Thor about the cancer, and then Thor goes like, oh my god, he's in shock and everything. And they have a little talk, and even Valkyrie and Head Crow have a talk, and we find out that Valkyrie actually did have a girlfriend. So I would say, if you remember the footage we saw from Ragnarok when with her and her sisters, obviously on the way to kill Hela, but obviously that didn't work out. I know there was that one woman who pushed her out of the way. Now I wonder if that was her girlfriend, but I would say that was her girlfriend. So. Because obviously when we heard about, we did hear about her, well, obviously now she's a lesbian. So I thought there was some bits with her, obviously the sign of, her as a lesbian. But obviously with Korg bringing that up, I was like, it popped in my head and going like, oh, I wonder if that woman was her girlfriend. Because he did say about, oh, your girlfriend got killed by Hela. So I was like, oh, that's got to be her. So they had a little chatter. And then obviously Thor and Jane do kiss, obviously in part of their conversation. But then they do arrive to where Gorr is. He's like in this, obviously, like I said, in the shadow realm, where it's all once they enter in, it's all in black and white. Which I thought it was a bit weird first when the whole colour changed to black and white, because I'm like, oh, we're in a black and white movie now. But it was pretty interesting to see. Obviously, they get to where Gorr's been, obviously in the bottom part of that kind of moony walk they onto. Jane finds this one room where there was these pictures, but we learned that the way to get to eternity is to use the Bifrost. Well, the power of the Bifrost. And we learned that, oh wait, Thor's hammer, it's like a key, because he mentions about a key, and he's like, and Mighty Thor finds out that, oh wait, Gorr needs Thor's axe. So she tells him it's a trap, and she chucks it away, and obviously Thor was asking like, oh, why'd you do that? And then she says, look, it's a key. We had to, obviously, it's a key and Gorr needs it. Obviously, Gorr comes in. Obviously, give him, I don't want to say torture, but he gets with these creatures to tie them up and all that. Obviously, he does sort of torture Valkyrie, saying about, oh, when you lost your sisters and all that by, all that. I mean, even made her teared up a bit. Even saying about, and even when he saw about Jane saying about, oh, you're dying, you're dying, obviously, and all that. Even when he says to Thor, and he says to her, look, call your weapon or I'll kill these two. It was kind of that kind of deal, but obviously Thor did. Which, sure, he'd be like, oh, he didn't have to, but he had to really if he wanted to save those two. He gets into a fight. Obviously, the three of them have a fight with Gorr and his Berserkers. Valkyrie gets injured, and it doesn't go well. And then when they leave, Gorr does get Thor's axe, and it's like, oh no. Obviously, he noticed that Jane is not well, because you notice that, oh, the hammer's not making her better. You learn, obviously, bits in the film, you learn that, oh, the hammer's not really making her better. It's more like draining her, even if it's supposed to make her healthy. So Thor gets her to a hospital, and the nurse says about, look, there's nothing we could do. This is the best what we're doing now is the best we could try to do, but we don't know anything else. Thor, obviously, being in anger, and he realised that, oh, I can't really have Jane to come with me now with the hammer, because it could kill her. Because I think he figured out that, oh, if she picks it up one more time, it's going to kill her, this time around. So then, obviously, with Valkyrie, good about her, she survives, because because you do see her get stabbed by Gorr, and I was like, oh god, oh, she ain't gonna die, but lucky she recovers, but she ain't fit for the battle. So Thor with the Zeus's lightning goes to where obviously the kind of like this temple where all these god statues are. So like you saw in the second trailer when you saw the Watcher, the Living Tribunal. I did hear some other videos who the other gods was, like the statues. Obviously you got Eternity, you got Infinity. I think there was Infinity or something like that. But obviously, and we saw a celestial head there as well, so that was interesting. But obviously, Gorr with the weapon and he's got the children, which I was like, wait, does he need the children as part of this? But I think he may just had the children just to draw Thor. But then obviously Gorr, obviously with Stormbreaker, started to like opening the doorway, but obviously he was taking his time. Thor arrives, and obviously he obviously reunites with the kids, and all that, and they go like, look, and he goes like, oh, we need to take him down. And he was like, and he tells all the kids to pick up a weapon. And this surprisingly happened was, after giving a speech, he somehow transferred his power into the kids, obviously all the weapons the kids are using. It was like, oh, so they all got 4 powers now. Which I thought it was a bit strange, but they don't have a uniform or anything. So they all have Thor and the children fight Gorr and the Berserkers. And it looks like that, it's going well for the kids fighting the monsters. It's pretty funny how that goes down. But it looks like it's going well for him fighting Gorr, but it doesn't really. And then Jane fills it. And you can tell from the moment it's like, yeah, Jane's going to pick up the hammer one more time, which the hammer does come to her. And it's like, yeah, she's really going to go as Mighty Thor. Then she arrives, and then obviously from Thor's face, he knows that, oh, like, what have you done? So it's like, he knows that she's going to get killed. Or, well, it's not, she ain't going to come out of this. They have a fight with Gorr. Even Jane gets a moment with him, because Gorr says female Thor to her. And then she goes like, first off, my name is Mighty Thor. And then she goes like, second, if you can't get that, it's Dr. Jane Foster. And then she comes up with her catchphrase saying, fear my hammer? I think that's what she say. Or feel my hammer. And I'm like, whoa. But then obviously the sad part is the door does open, because the one moment when Thor does get the axe, off the bit that Gorr put it on, the door does open and Gorr does walk into it. And it's like we end up to a new location with water and cloud, and you can see Eternity, and Gorr obviously, because obviously with the sword being destroyed, because Jane, before entering there, Jane using the ability with the hammer can obviously break to pieces, destroys the sword, the Necro sword, but then Gorr tries to get it back together, but the hammer pieces get the sword, and then they attach to the sword or attach to the hammer. Jane calls the lightning by destroying the sword, which that happened. And then obviously when it gets to that bit now where Eternity is, Thor notices that Jane's not going to make it, and he sees Gorr, and he goes like, look, it's more important to be with her. And he's saying like, you win and all that, like you can have what you want, like your daughter. And he goes like, and he does say like, make your choice, like on the wish bit. And then Thor confident Jane, but Jane says, they have a little talk to one another. Jane obviously gives her one last kiss, and then she turns to Asgardian dust like Odin did, and she dies. But Gorr, obviously he was noticed that he was dying. He does make his wish, and what his wish was, he was wishing to have his daughter back, which that was a surprise, because I thought his plan was, he was going to just make the wish of making the God bomb and doing that, but no. His plan was he was to bring his child back. And then he dies, and then there's his child there. And then it was like, oh, what happens next? And then what happened next was Korg gives him a montage talk, and he says about, let me tell you the story of Mighty Thor, Jane Foster. And they build a statue of her, which that was nice. So they built a statue in her honor. And then what happened now is to everyone is, you got Heimdall's kids, and with the other kids all being trained by Valkyrie and Lady Sif, so she's back up and running, and she's got the a thingy to hold. She's got a thingy covering obviously the damage of a missing arm, but I thought she might have got a robotic arm, but who knows, if we see her again, I hope she gets that. We see Korg, because early in the film, he mentions about how Korg's people have a baby. It's like they go into this cave of a lava, they spend there for a month, and then holding hands, and then a wok baby comes from it. But then we see that Korg, who he meets a wok guy named, I think he said Darryl or something, and I'm like, and that shows that, Korg's gay. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I was thought that's something for Korg then. I mean, because at first I was going to the film, I was like, oh, so the only way they could born babies is that. And then I was like, and I thought, so the males had to do that. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, Korg mentioned his mother in the last film. So I'm like, so I was like, I was like, oh, maybe that's the same for female ones. Like the female, if with a male or even female, maybe they have to do the same thing to have a baby. With Thor, we see now that he's adopted Gorr's daughter as his his own, and he's making her food, but obviously she doesn't know what it is, and it's like saying like she doesn't like it, even she hasn't had it. And she's got these lasers come out of her eyes, and I'm like, oh, what kind of power is that now? Because I was wondering now, it's like, oh, what kind of power is that? Because it was not lightning, and I'm like, wait, is this something from eternity? Like, is this like eternity's powers? But they don't really say much what it is. And then obviously you got like with Thor being reunited with the hammer, with Mjolnir. And it looks like what he's done now is, so him and his adopted daughter, well, he's talking here as like an adopted daughter. What it looks like they're doing now is they're still traveling around the galaxy, helping people. They go across this planet where there's a binge with these monsters and he's about to attack some people. And what he's done is now, he's like, he gives Stormbreaker to the girl and he has Mjolnir. And then they charge, and then Korg last words were mentioned, the words love and thunder. And then the film cuts to the credits. But then here comes the big one, the post-credit scenes. So the first post-credit scene is, we learn that Zeus is alive, and he's talking to someone, and he's saying about, look of us, we are become fools, we have become fools, all this, because he was saying about, because it was more on the line side, they become lazy and they really care about, doing their God work. And he was going like, looks like the heroes and all that, looks like they don't worship us up. And he made it sound like that, we're going to make them worship us again. So he's going to get, so his plan might be he's going to try and get every species and the humans maybe to fear them again, or, in those kind of words. And then we learned that he was talking to his son, Hercules, which we see Hercules, and he stands up, and you can see he's got the comic book accurate armor on, and he's got some weapons, and he's like, oh. And it seems like as well, I think Zeus is sending him to go after Thor, because he does mention Thor, so I'm like, oh, Hercules is going to go after him. And then the end credit scene, the other one, is like Jane in Valhalla, and we get a surprise appearance of Heimdall. I think I said his name right. And she's like, oh, hello there. And he says thank you to her, saying thank you for looking after my son and all that. And then he says about, welcome to Valhalla. Says about all the gods are waiting for your welcome. Kind of like saying that all the gods welcome you and all that. And then the film cuts off. So I'm like, oh, there's a chance that we might see Jane again, and maybe Odin and some others. So that's how the film went down. And like I said, it was pretty good, it was. I really enjoyed the film. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, most of all, like, obviously with Jane, because I knew that they'd keep the cancer line in it, but it was really sad how they touched upon that in the film. What I'm going to say is like, the character-wise, Thor, as normal, he's really beautiful, and really good he is, and funny at his times. The Guardians, obviously, because we only saw little bits of them, it was really cool to see the Guardians, seeing or what they look like now, and obviously this is what they've been doing with Thor lately, and all that. And to mention, and to give you an up-to-date with Yondu's mate, he's not pretty good with the owl still, because at one point in the film you see the owl into his nose, so he hasn't managed the owl still, so I thought I'd update you with that. But it was good to see Korg again and all that. Miek, obviously, you do see Miek in the film, but it's only like a quick, kind of like short moments there. Valkyrie, I thought she did a good part in it with her fighting and all that. And her friendship with Jane, it was like, wow. It was like the friendship was good. Obviously, it looks like Jane obviously told Valkyrie about the cancer, so it was like, so obviously she told her about it. I thought I mentioned that. But obviously, like I said, how they bond with one another. It's like, oh, that was interesting. Now, the one thing I was surprised about the Valkyrie one, because I thought, because they said in the film, before the film, they said about, oh, she's looking for someone like to be in love with and all that. But I thought, oh, maybe we might have a surprise female character who joins on their journey, and Valkyrie falls in love for her. But we don't really get that. So I'm like, oh, all right. But I did at one point, I thought, like a shock, like, oh, what if Jane got with Valkyrie? But obviously that didn't happen. Jane, I gotta say, Jay's performance, Natalie Portman as Jane Foster was amazing again. It was good to see her again and all of that. And now her becoming Mighty Thor, oh my god, it was amazing. And how she really took it, like how she really enjoyed being Mighty Thor. Like she really was, I think she was really enjoying it. Because obviously, like I said, she was trying to get a catchphrase, obviously and all that. And then also her saying about this, my first bad guy. She was like, oh, she really loves being a superhero now. Now, obviously, with other characters I'll get to Gorr in a bit. Zeus, I thought, well, that was pretty cool for Russell Crowe. And you could see that, oh, yeah, Zeus is a dickhead, and you can tell he is. Big one I really want to get into now is Gorr. Now, I also noticed like there was a lot of changes from Gorr. Obviously, look-wise, obviously. Which lately they did bring up about why he doesn't look like his comic book accurate look. Which apparently turns out they said, oh, then he would just look like Voldemort from Harry Potter. I'm like, whoa, okay, I can understand the nose bit, but the head bit's not. Because the long kind of, well, those long head bits, obviously they ain't. That's not Voldemort's part. I loved his performance. Obviously, Christian Bale, I'm sorry if I'm getting his first name wrong. His performance as Gorr was amazing. The parts I thought at first was odd about how he was being like the funny, like moments he was being funny and all that. Because to me, as I've heard of Gorr, I've heard Gorr ain't the funny one. Like he won't make little dog jokes and all that. But I was like, okay, that's very interesting that they done this for him. The one bit I want to get into now is so the one I was happy that they kept the sword as the Necro sword, so that was happy. Like I said about the Berserkers, they make it out that the Necro sword can't, obviously what it does is it gives Gorr the power to obviously create the Berserkers, and it's kind of like in a shadow kind of way. So the creatures are made out like in a shadow, and to me I was going like, well, does this, can they still say they're symbiotes? Because they do, because they don't look like a shadow thing. They just look like they got flesh, and they obviously have flesh on them and all that. So I'm like, well, how does that work? And all that. But with the and the creature, obviously with Gorr was by, obviously when he got the Necro sword by. At first I was going like, oh, is this gnome? Is there any chance they actually got to have gnome in the MCU? But looking at the creature, it didn't look like gnome. I couldn't even make out what that creature was. I couldn't even make it out. At first I was saying like, oh, it's his gnome and everything, but obviously they don't say who that thing's name was, so you could still say maybe that might have been gnome, but I don't know, because later on in the film they do say that the sword has been passed on to different people, so I'm like, oh, maybe that was a gnome, but who knows? Probably might have been him, but I don't think it would have been if they said that, so yeah. So probably that might not have been known, but if it was or if it wasn't, but maybe who knows, maybe Kevin Feige or Taika Waititi might come out and say, oh, who this person was. But, we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But, like I said, they don't really say that if they're symbiotes, and I think from this saying them shadow creatures, I think that makes it that, oh, they're not symbiotes, but I don't know. I mean, I thought with them keeping the sword's name, I thought that, it's got to be a symbiote kind of. They must be keeping the symbiote storyline and all that, but I don't know. I mean, and obviously with the sword being destroyed, I'm like, well, I don't think it's destroyed because obviously you can't destroy it, and obviously if they are gonna have Gnome in the future, yeah, that sword's got to go to Gnome. So I don't know. That's gonna be interesting to see the future of that one. Obviously the future for Thor now. Now, obviously in the end of the last post credit scene, we do get the card saying Thor will return. So I think this is a way to tell us that maybe they are making a 4, 5, and 6, or maybe just 4, 5, which that would be interesting to see. Obviously, what happens with Thor now? So obviously now losing Jane, and it was sad really because it was like they got back together and now he lost her. So that was a shame. But I'm hoping for one day those two will get back together, which I'll get to in a bit about once while I bring that up. But him now having a girl to look after, which like in a way like it's his own, but obviously it's not. So it's like, he's become a father now, well, to this girl, which that was interesting. But what am I going to say? Trying to get my words out. About what the girl is now, because I thought that was interesting, because like I said, it looks like she could be like a part of eternity, or she has a bit of eternity in her, because when she came back, you could see from the refresher of the water, you could see her, on her refresher, it was like she looked like eternity, and then when you see, obviously, the person, the girl, it's like, just looks like what she looked like in the beginning, so I'm like, what is she now then? So I'm like, is she eternity, or is she some kind of part of eternity that came out of eternity, but I don't know. So, it'll be interesting to see of their future. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see the other characters like Lady Sif and Valkyrie. Maybe see what happens with these two. Korg, obviously, hopefully we see him again in another film when he's now a parent. You know, I want to see how he deals with fatherhood and all that. And now with Jane now, which I want to bring up more about the end credit scene. Like, to me, I've seen her in Valhalla, which I was surprised about her because I'm like, wait, how did she get to Valhalla? Even she ain't a god, but I was like, maybe when she just became mighty Thor, maybe it just automatically made her as a god and like, she could go to Valhalla and not heaven. But I got a funny feeling that she'll be back from the dead, because if you read the comics, we hear that she does die eventually, and then she comes back as Valkyrie. So maybe this might be a sign that she might find a way to come back to life, and she becomes a Valkyrie, or stay as mighty Thor. I don't know. I mean, we don't know what they're gonna do, but we've seen Heimdall there as well. Maybe that told me that maybe we might see him again in the future, and maybe Odin, and maybe Thor's mother, and other gods obviously who died. I mean, we could get the Warriors 3 back in the film in the future. I mean, we could see them again, and I wouldn't thought we see Hela in that place, and also as well, Hela was not in the film because I was hoping maybe we find out that Hela did survive, but no, there was no sign of her. But really, that's all I gotta say, and really gotta say about the future really. So, but there's no really big hints of. I mean, the only hint I could get of one part of the future we'll get is like, maybe it could look like that the gods might go to war with the humans, and like might go with a war with the species, the humans, any species, maybe to make them fear the gods again. So maybe it's kind of like set it up like, we're going to make all these species feel worship us again in fear and all that. So that's what, I don't know in fear, but you know what I mean? Because it was obviously, like I say, because Zeus made it sound like, we become jerks and all that. Maybe cowards, jerks, etc., etc. So I think Zeus is trying to find a way to get like popular again and get all the gods popular again. So that's why I say, like I said, he looks like he's going to send Hercules to go after Thor, maybe to start this kind of war. But we'll have to wait to see. I mean, to me, it might look like that Hercules will be in 4, 5, or somewhere down the line, because I've said it'd be nice to have Hercules in the franchise, and now we're going to have him in the MCU, so that'd be cool to see. And that's it, really. So, like I said, the film's amazing and all that, and I would give this film 10 out of 10. And I would also say as well, I would recommend to you guys out there, if you're in a relationship, I'll take your partner to watch this, because I would think you both would love it. Because there is love and there is thunder. There is them a lot. So that's it I gotta say here. So if you actually seen the film and you actually see the film, leave a comments down below and what do you think of the film? Did you enjoy it? And also, what about the post-credit scenes, all that? What was your favourite character in the film? And do you think Gorr was good? And give your own thoughts. What do you think this one is setting up in the future? Like, do you think they could be setting up like a gods versus like every species war? Do you think they're setting that up, or And do you think that Jane could be coming back as Valkyrie or maybe her mighty form back from the dead kind of thing? Like I said, give your thoughts down below. Give this video as a thumbs up if you like. Share this out to your friends. So if someone wants to see someone different for a change, one of my videos, and if they like it, they can subscribe to this channel, to keep up and watch some more, obviously, future videos. And if you are new to this video, this is what I do. I do the Marvel and Transformers Cinematic Universe spoiler reviews. I also spoiler reviews, I also do the news. So I do news on it. I did do like a daily videos or kind of like videos with news and everything, but I know I haven't done that a lot, but I said I'd try to get back into it, but I don't know, they might not never come back, but who knows, we're going to see. But I will still carry on doing like trailers, Super Bowl TV spots, the clips, I've said I'd do that, but that might not be happening as well. And then like I've done here, like the spoiler reviews, but for the Transformers and Marvel. I don't do like the spoilery reaction kind of trailers, I don't do reactions to those. Because obviously when you're only like 2 or 1 week away from the film, I don't want to be, shown a lot. So there's that. To finish this off, if you watched my last Marvel video, click here, my channel. Make sure you click the bell so you'll be notified when my new videos are up. And here to see my last Transformers video. So that's really it, guys. That's all I've got to say on here. Now, if you have noticed my kind of thing going up and down, my support thing that holds the iPad is not really looking good, so I might have to try and get me a new one. I know I've said myself in the past, I might need to try and start getting like a camera so I can get like a good quality kind of video, but maybe in the future I'll try really work, because I do say I want to try and make my YouTube's in very important, improve them, because I've noticed I'm stuck, like, since ever I've started these videos, was not getting a million reviews and all that, but, I've always noticed I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but, look, that's just me. Look, I'm doing my best, so I just thought I'd say that now, and for just in case you were noticing why that's happening, now you know. So that's all I've got to say. So I hope you enjoy this reaction and breakdown. Well, not reaction, me spoiler review of Thor: Love and Thunder. Thank you for watching. Hang on, I'll do that. There you go. Thank you for watching. There we are, and see you again soon. Peace.